Hello, hello, hello. I am Ed Decker, the founder and artistic director of the new Conservatory Theater Center here in San Francisco, and it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you to our first ever edition of NCTV. We are streaming to you live, and we've got some exciting programming coming down the stream, including a puppet version of Hedwig, a dance choreography lesson, and a world premiere reading of plays to come at NCT, just to name a few. So as they say, the show must go on, and I hope you'll continue to join us Fridays at 5 for NCTC TV. So we are very, very lucky to be joined by playwright and performer extraordinaire, Mr. Charles Busch, who you see on the screen with me. You all know him from such hits as Die, Mommie, Die, The Divine Sister, Red Scare on Sunset, Psycho Beach Party, and the list goes on. And of course, our upcoming regional premiere of The Confession of Lily Dare. It is so good to see you, Charles. How are you?
It's always great seeing you, Ed. Yeah, usually I see you live when you come to New York City or when I come to San Francisco, so it's a little different for us.
It is. I mean, I always enjoy our conversations, and whenever I come to New York, we make a point of having a visit, a tea, a dinner, and a very, very, very long chat. And I'm always intrigued by all the wonderful experiences and stories that you have to share. We talk for hours on end, and I know that our time is short here today, but I want to just start the conversation with you. I have a few questions. I also want to let our viewers know that if you have questions for Charles or I, you can type them into the comments section, and we'll do our best to get to them. Later, as we conclude this conversation, we're going to, as promised, have a little never have I ever question and answer period. Maybe that will reveal some delicious dirt along the way. But before we get to that, I have learned, well, actually, you told me, so that's how I know, that you are working on a memoir. And
for years. I'm done. I'm sort of I mean, I don't know. A book is never really finished until it's published. But yeah, I finished it enough that I've been showing it to people. Oh
yeah.
Oh my God! I mean, it took for years. I mean, I had 400 pages, and I hadn't even turned 16 yet. But now I have it down to manageable length, and I'm excited about it.
So we've moved through past adolescence in the storytelling of the memoir, and then
no, I've done the whole thing.
Oh, that's great. Well, so
yesterday.
So are you in editing mode, or if you've written it, what part of the process are you in before we get into what's in the book?
I'm in seeking representation mode. No, well, to be really, it's very sad in a certain sense that all of my, in the past year, see, I've very long relationships, in many ways, and my dear friend and longtime manager Jeff Melnick passed away last October.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my lawyer. I'm very by my alone, and so yeah. So anyway, but I'm seeking representation. And anyway, so the book is out there, so we'll see. But I'm very excited about it, and people kept telling me as I was working on it all these years, oh, you really only have to write 30 pages to send out.
Right.
Then you get the deal, and that in fact happened. The one novel that I wrote in the 90s called Hordes of Los Atlantis, I only wrote a 3-page proposal and got the contract.
Green light.
Then had to write it. But in this case, I thought I just really want to write the book. I wanted to write the whole thing because I thought, my fear was that if I only wrote the 30 pages of the proposal and if it got turned down by a lot of people, then I would just never write the book. know.
And do we have a title yet? Is it just Charles, My Life?
It's called, at the moment, it's called This Never Leaves the Dressing Room. So I thought it was kind of
Oh,
cute.
that's a great title.
I thought that
And
was
and and may I press further and say, ask about some of those things that should not leave the dressing room but did in your memoir?
oh, I'm
Anything that
excited
comes
about
to
to say
mind?
it's a sexy story.
It's
No,
a sexy story.
I covered the waterfront in several cities,
Yeah,
including San Francisco.
yeah.
Yeah, I early part of my career was in San Francisco, and
I
in a
know.
way, the very first validation that I wasn't deranged into trying to, put myself in the public eye was in San Francisco at the Valencia Rose Cabaret in the Mission, which was such
I
a
remember it well, and I think I saw you there.
really? Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Well, that
yeah.
was a fascinating place because it's always been kind of odd with my career. I never, and it might be have been a problem, but I never had like the big dream. Like I was never thinking someday I've got to win an Oscar or someday I've got to have my own sitcom. I never thought that way. It was always, what's the next step that I'm trying to reach? So, for instance, the first 8 years of my career was as a solo performer because it was just easier to try to book myself as a solo performer than to try to get a play
Sure.
produced.
Touring solo is a lot easier than
It was
too
a lot
now.
easier, and I did
Yeah,
it all myself.
yeah.
At that time, I'm sort of back to square one. At that time, I had no representation either. But so anyway, so I booked myself around the country. So my big goal was I wanted to play San Francisco, and that wasn't so easy because I knew nobody there. And so did have one friend from New York, a young woman named Deborah Crane, who was in arts management, and she was living in San Francisco. And I had got her on it, and she was a very smart young woman, and she managed to get me one night at Theater Rhinoceros,
Right.
and we did it as a benefit for the Golden Gate Businessmen's Association.
Right.
And
I remember.
and she filled up that little theater with all sorts of people, and I did my solo monologues, and then afterwards, this young man, Donald Montwill, who was managing Valencia Rose, he came and he thought I was famous, and I chose not to dispel his illusion. I was totally unknown anywhere, but he was very impressed, and so he asked me if I would then come back and do a whole run at Valencia Rose later in the year, and I did, and I don't know, I really was embraced by the gay press in San Francisco, the BAR and David Lamble,
Right.
and,
Right.
and Edward Guthman, who was interviewed me for The Advocate before, and he was very helpful. And just all these people really were behind me.
Right.
And so I sold out this run, and it was so wonderful to be at the Valencia Rose, which was kind of the epicenter of gay culture and politics. It was 1980.
80s.
So,
And did that then lead you, because then Donald, if I remember correctly, Donald moved over to and founded Josie's Cabaret and Juice Joint. Did you end up playing there as well in later years?
Yeah, well, I then had begun I had kind of got my big break with the production of Vampire Lesbians of Sodom in
Right.
85. And then, so it was a couple of years. When was Josie's? I wonder how many years that was.
Oh gosh, that was definitely maybe the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, so it was a while. So I was already established, but I hadn't done any kind of cabaret work in a while, and so it was. I didn't do a very good act at Josie's. I have to say, it wasn't so good. It wasn't so good.
Well, that act. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hadn't quite figured it out. Well, then I was very insecure. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this act. I'm not going to be in drag. So, and I had never done this act not in drag at that time, and so I did it for one night, and I thought, this isn't right. I'm feeling very awkward, and so I ran out and found some tacky wig store downtown in San Francisco, and bought myself a red wig, and I think I I got a boa or something. Anyway, and some makeup. Next night did it in drag was better, but it wasn't so good.
Well, you know, that act has certainly been refined over the years. That's for darn sure. Listen, I wanted to get back to the book for just a second. I meant to ask you this the last time we visited, and I didn't get a chance to, which is, you know, every writer that I know works a little bit differently. So when you sit down to write, do you have to have, like, you know, complete silence and shades drawn and, you know, very, very self-isolated, or is the music going and the muse is sparked and off you go?
Well, first of all, I live in Greenwich Village, and
Right.
I live on right below my window is the intersection of about 4 different streets.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
yeah, but it's never quiet. But I was brought up in New York City. I was brought up living in an apartment, and I'm so used to just a lot of cacophonous sound. I'm just used to. I mean, the few times that I've been in the country, and there's just been the sound of what cicadas, that's what it's called, or, you know, oh my God, I'm going insane. I'm just wired to live in an urban environment. So yeah, so I don't even hear it. And
Yeah.
there's sirens going on right as we speak.
So
yes,
that really inspires you. That sort of energy and the sounds of the city it's what you know, and it's what you're used to.
I block it out. Except that sometimes on my corner, because I live in a very kind of residential kind of area in a way. You know, it's Greenwich Village. You know, it's all kind of small buildings. And
yeah.
Anyway, a lot of kids live around here, and so sometimes the good humor truck comes in, and we got that melody going
Right.
over and over. That could drive you a little nuts. But even that, you know, I'm an old whore. You know, I just tell me to write, I write, and I'm pretty disciplined. I enjoy it. It's a discipline to write a first draft when there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And that's really tedious, and you know, and I try to avoid it sometimes and drag things out. But once I'm into it, to me, it's like a drug. I just can't stay away.
So as you write, and when you were working on this memoir, was there any sort of like surprise memories that surfaced that you had sort of, you know, that were sort of in the back of your mind that all of a sudden came, you know, pulsing forward?
Well, it is interesting though. You get into a certain zone. It's how you unlock the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it did amaze me, just little details. You know, the name of a neighbor's dog from when I was 7 years old. You know, just like the strange little details like that. And you think, oh my God, yeah. But it's like you've kind of taken the key and you sort of open the door and into the past, and things come forward. But of course, you know, I tend to tidy up things anyway. I have everything is a narrative to me. Everybody I meet is a story. Tom Judson, you know, who
your accompanist and musical director.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fascinating fellow. We were in the car, and I told him, I said, you know, your life is so interesting, and I have a version of it that I tell people. And he said, well, what is it? And I told him the abbreviated, tidied up story of his life as I tell it. And he said, well, that didn't happen at all. There were years between those 2 points. I said, yes, but I said, you should tell my version. It's better.
Right. Well, you have to sort of link these things together and shape and mold them, right?
Right.
So
and after a while, I believe it too.
Exactly. I understand. You know, we sometimes create the realities that are best suited for
the gist is there. The honest emotional truth. I believe I am faithful to, but sometimes I just compress events a little bit.
Yeah, well, and you have to. And knowing you as I do, I know that this memoir is nothing but honest, and also very, very entertaining is my guess. I'm looking forward to some of the surprises that I will find when I get a chance to to read it, and I'm sure that our viewers and all of your fans are looking forward to it as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so.
I also know that you and your longtime collaborator director Carl Andrus are working on a new screenplay.
Yeah, no, I'm keeping busy here in Solitary.
You are. You know, shelter in place has got nothing on you.
Grass isn't growing. I'm in there. I'm in it to win it. Yeah.
Let go.
Yeah.
Go.
I just loved. I tell you, even though really my career has been predominantly in theater, but some of in a way, the greatest experiences I've had creatively were the few movies that I was involved in. And I just love it so much. And so I nowadays, you can make a movie really cheap, if you work it right. And so Carl and I have been writing a screenplay for a movie that we could shoot in our various apartments, basically. And I'm very excited about it. We've all it's a very low budget. We have all the financing. So as soon as basically, as soon as they say that we can actually all be in a room together to act, the cameras will start rolling.
That's great. And is the script finished?
Well, no, but
no. Details.
Ed, spoken like a producer, spoken like a creative director, artistic director. No. I'd say I've got I'm a third of the way into it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I've never missed a deadline ever.
That I know. That I know.
I never have. But I think it's partly because, see, I was so bad in school. I was so unscholastic and just invisible, basically, and hated every minute of school. I've never been able to operate in a classroom, even as an acting class. I can't do it. And so I sometimes think that because I was such a bust academically in school, that when I began my career as a writer, I think I thought this I can do, this I can do, and I've never ever, when I say something's going to be delivered on a date, it's there. Or when I work on a new play, if there has to be rewrites while we're in rehearsal, I don't go to bed until the rewrite's done. And the next morning at rehearsal, I've got the pages for everybody. I think it may be just because finally I'm in the arena that I can operate in, as opposed to kind of a traumatic experience of school when I just couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. I so admire people who no matter what the circumstances are, they do 100%. They give 100%. My Carl Andrus is like that. No matter, when he had to do any kind of survival job, no matter how dreary, he's in it 100%. Any task. And I'm not like that. If it's not just my direct interest of showbiz or whatever, I give 70%, 50%. This is why I was terrible when I used to be an office temp worker. I was always really nice and sweet, but never, never got the work done.
Well, I do know that about you, in that when you're working and your creative energies and those fires have been ignited, it's like 120 to 200% rolling forward. Your work ethic is very strong, and I just before things got all shut down, I was in New York in February, and I saw you when you were doing 8 shows a week of Lily Dare, and I know that's a real challenge to do matinés and evenings. Yeah,
it's a killer part. I good luck to the person who plays it in San Francisco. Yeah.
Well, that'll be our friend Conrad Frank will be.
We can say I wasn't sure.
Say it out loud. We can say it out loud.
I adore Conrad, and
starring.
I'm glad to be able to give hand the role over to someone so accomplished.
You know, I see a question that came in from one of our viewers about asking if you think that the memoir might be out and ready in time for when Lily Dare is happening, and we're still a ways from that, huh?
I don't even have an agent.
All right, we got to get the agent first. Okay, so
I gotta have an agent, and then the agent's gotta sell it to publisher, and then it takes like another year before something actually comes out. We're gonna be old before that book.
Damn, there's always a process.
Yeah, I think in a way one of the reasons why it took me so long to write, well, numerous reasons. One was I didn't know what kind of book I was going to write, and was it only going to go up to me going to college, or was it only going to be about how far do I take it? So I didn't know that, and then I've been so spoiled. I just had a kind of a dream career in that I've kind of always had a deadline. Or sometimes it's self-imposed. Just when I was a solo performer, I had to have an act ready to play in San Francisco. Those ways I literally had to do it. And then there's always these plays where we would have a deadline. We'd say, "Oh, we want to do a play in March, so you better have a play ready." But with something like this book, there's no assurance that it'll ever be published. So it kind of it makes it more difficult to discipline yourself when it's just a hope and a dream.
Sure. Well, I understand that. I also, as time rolls along here, I want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about the Confession of Lily Dare.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. Well, we're very excited that we're going to be able to produce the regional premiere here in San Francisco when we all get to come back into the theater. Yeah. So that's something that we're looking forward to. But I'm sure that our viewers would be really interested in knowing what the inspiration was for Lily Dare. I know you and I have talked about it, and the fact that it's set in San Francisco is an extra treat. Gold Rush San Francisco is an extra treat for us. Talk to me about sort of like where this came from in your imagination.
Well, a lot of the plays I've written were written for me to act in. And so sometimes there really is kind of just a daydream fantasy element to it of, wouldn't it be fun to be Barbara Stanwyck in a mother love melodrama? I mean, it can start as simple as that, and really often it's just what kind of role would I like to play. I mean, how great is that to have that opportunity,
right?
To do that. Yeah, and I've always loved movies where the leading lady has to age a lot. I love those movies. Like where Jane Wyman would do them, or Barbara Stanwyck, it would just be a tour de force. They go from young girlhood through womanhood to kind of old crone, basically in Hollywood terms. And I always wanted to do that kind of part. And I started a couple other times in the past and thinking about that. So that was definitely something. And there was a small, it's almost a subgenre of what was known as the woman's picture in Hollywood in the early 30s. And I don't know if it was called at the time, but since it's been referred to as the confession film. And there were just a spate of movies, there might have been as many as 6 of them, that were all riffs on one particular story. There was a play, and it's been remade as a movie 20 times, Madam X. And they were kind of riffs on the plot of Madam X. And there was the Sin of Madeleine Claudet, The Secret of Madame Blanche. They all had some rather similar titles, Frisco Jenny.
Right.
They all have kind of the same story where a young woman has an illegitimate baby, and she ends up having to give up the child. And the years go by, the calendar pages turn, and she goes through all sorts of different personae and basically
trials and tribulations,
and it goes down the primrose path, and
right.
and then many years later, when the child is grown, her big secret is that the child who's become a great success must never know her identity, and her only gift she can give her child is her silence. And that's basically the plot of all these movies. So,
Right.
so Confession of Lily Dare is that story.
That story.
And I just, I'm a big sucker for anything with mothers, and everything we a writer writes is personal. You can't help it. I mean, it comes like a dream. It comes out of your subconscious, whether you know it or not. You tell the same story over and over. And and my mother died when I was 7. And, for all of you out there who've lost a parent at a very young age, we kind of share certain things.
Sure, an understanding.
You never quite get over it, or let's put it this way: you get over it, but I think it affects so many choices that you make in your life in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in that regard, Charles, one of the other last things I wanted to talk about with Lily Dare is having seen it and read it and knowing you as I do, and when you're just talking about your mom, I was really struck by the balance of, I don't know, sort of joy and uplifting comedy in the story, juxtaposed to a very tender, warm, heartfelt, romantic at times, but very, 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 very touching. And I just was struck by how you were able to sort of navigate both of those, lanes on the highway, as it were, because it must not have been easy to do that.
It's tricky, and we've Carl. I say we, Carl and I, because Carl's directed almost every play I've done the past 20 years, a couple exceptions, and we've been experimenting all these years with find a different balance of comedy and sentiment or drama, and we've failed miserably years ago, and we did another humorless play called Queen Amarantha, but we learned from that. So all of the plays we've done, The Divine Sister, I'm getting notifications.
Yeah, I'm getting a few of those.
I could probably try.
It's your agent. It's your book agent.
I could try to turn off, AOL or something, but
you might turn us off. Don't do that.
I turn us off. So can we just deal with the boing?
We can do. Listen, I just got a question from Conrad, Frank, who's watching,
okay. Yes.
and he was asking me something that I was going to ask next before we move on to our Never Have I Ever game. Okay. How much changed between the first run of Lily Dare? Was it Theater for the New City, and then when you were at the Cherry Lane in Greenwich Village?
Right. Yes, Conrad saw it at Theater for New City. Well, we had a long time. We had about almost 2 years between.
Oh, was it that long?
Well, certainly a year and a half.
Okay.
We had done it at Theater for New City just for fun. It's a wonderful nonprofit theater, and I've had a relationship for 40 years at Theater for New City, and we've put on plays really just for 3-week runs, just for fun. We don't invite any critics. We just do them. But then Primary Stages Theater, where I've also had a relationship over the years, wanted me to be a part of their 35th anniversary season, and so they thought they'd love us to do Lily Dare. But it wasn't the next season, it was the season after. So we had to wait. And that was just very scary, because I thought, the Temple of Time could come crashing on my shoulders any minute. I'm of that age. Right. Any minute it could just happen,
Not leaving them, just changing the shades. Yeah. There we go.
So it's always so I was getting really nervous that it was going to be almost 2 years. So I did do not too many changes. I did some editing, basically, and one place, Conrad will be happy to know, there was a quick costume change, and I added a whole another scene that I'm not in, so I can take a nice leisurely costume change in the middle of the play. That's a nice thing though when you're the playwright and the actor. Yeah.
To
So
take care of those things along the way. Well, Conrad Brack said it was brilliant when he saw it at the Theater for New City, and he's looking forward to this new version as well.
I'm looking forward to him playing the part because he'll be wonderful.
Well, we're a little over our half-hour time, so I want to thank you for for being with us, Charles, and I want to move into our Never Have I Ever game.
Okay.
And as I understand the rules of this game, I'm going to pose a couple questions, and if your response is that you have done something to the question that I'm asking, then you just take a drink.
Okay.
Then I know that there's a story behind behind the question, and I will do the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So here's the first question. Are you ready?
I think
All
so.
right.
Okay.
All right. Never have I ever said that I've enjoyed a performance that I have actually hated. So if you never have I ever said that I've enjoyed a performance that I've actually hated.
How did I say? Is this where I get? Is this where I get?
Now I've never done that. I've never,
You've never said that you loved something that you hated.
That's exactly right.
Oh,
I would rather say nothing than.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm a big fat liar. Big fat liar, and I believe in it. I really do. I really do. I'm serious about it. No, plus, I've been in a situation where I've seen productions that had to sit through very bad productions of my plays. But I would never, no matter how amateurish or misconceived or whatever, never ever would I go backstage and be evasive or negative. I would never do. So you can always find something to say, and sometimes it takes a lot of creativity, but I'll go back and I'll find something. I say, oh my gosh, I loved all the energy and pacing or there was a wonderful lighting effect. That was fantastic. I'll find, and each actor, I'll thank each one of them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how terrible it is.
I'm with you. I can always find something good and can talk about that.
And I appreciate when people have done that. Well, it's like, and I have a sort of a list of people who did come back to shows of mine that they didn't like and said, weird things like, you really did it, silly, mean-spirited things.
Right.
But I keep my list.
Well, I hope that NCTC isn't on that list. Okay, next question. Never have I ever Googled myself.
Oh, well, I really try not to because it's all narcissism. You're hoping you're just going to come across somebody's some website or somebody saying how wonderful you are, and invariably you're going to come up with something, and you get fooled too because you'll see a headline like it's a review from around some production of mine, and the capsule thing seems like it's going to be positive. Ooh, and then in a great narcissistic art orgy, you click on, and it's some awful, horrible diatribe. Yeah, now you really, I don't do it very often, but there have been times 2 in the morning where kind of looking for approval, and oh man,
yeah, that's always a mistake. Well, I did it once, Charles, and I found out that there is a great, very, very, I guess, well-regarded, very, very well-followed Mormon pastor by the name of Edward Decker.
Oh my God!
And he's big congregation and all that. And after I did that, I said, I'm not Googling myself ever again, because you never know what you're going to find out.
Oh.
Okay, last question. Never have I ever fallen asleep at a play.
Oh,
I got to drink to that. I'm
I
guilty.
I got a drink, honey. Yeah, no, it's that first act is hard, isn't it? The first
It
act
can
is
be.
hard. Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes it's really good too, but there's something about being lulled in the warmth of, auditorium, and it's a long day, and
Right, and then out you go.
Can I name drop here a little bit?
Sure, go for it. This is what we're here for.
I was very good friends with Joan Rivers. Was a great friend of mine, and I missed so much. And anyway, she was always, everybody said, oh, she loved the theater. I mean, I got to know her because she used to come see my shows, and then we, became friends. But I would often accompany her to the theater, and she was fast asleep during the first act. But you couldn't really blame her. I think that was the place where she did her sleeping, because she was such a workaholic.
Yeah.
She was either going to QVC or taping a show or doing a performance, and the only place she could sleep was in the theater.
Now, didn't you also used to spend Thanksgivings with her, or am I mixing that up?
Yeah. Thanksgivings, and
I remember that. Well, I don't know if I should admit this, on live stream, Zoom, Facebook TV, but I fell asleep during Les Miserables.
Well, that's easy to do. I mean, it was a big, long show.
Oh, and I thought all this fuss over a loaf of bread. I mean.
I loved it. I brought the record. I loved it. But
yeah,
it's that was a long show.
It was a long show, and the music was so sort of relaxing at times. Not, of course, when the revolution was happening, but I popped back into action.
I didn't see, certain things I don't go see because I'm afraid I'm going to fall asleep. I didn't.
Yeah.
I wish I wanted to see The Inheritance, which I heard was so.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Extraordinary, but it was each half was over 3 hours. I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to make it. I think I'd be.
Yeah, well, it was riveting. You would have made it. It was riveting, and
Michael Lopez, he's a great writer.
Yeah, great writer. Well, Charles, thank you so much for taking time this evening, for joining us from New York. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I look forward and long to be physically in the same room with you again very, very soon. So thank you, and can't wait till Lily Dare is happening in San Francisco, and that we can all come back to the theater together.
Yeah, so I hope it happens soon.
I know that was
notification. I got a notification.
Any final words before we go?
Oh, just I love being associated with your theater, and it's a wonderful theater, and I cherish the relationship.
Thank you, as do I, Charles, and as do all of our audiences here in San Francisco. So thanks again. Enjoy your evening. Charles, stay safe and healthy. Same good wishes to everybody watching, and we'll see you again next Friday, NCTV live at 5.